All right, so let's dive into something pretty fascinating. You know, sometimes the most revealing things come in the most ordinary packages. And today, we're going to break down an educational document, specifically a sixth grade worksheet. Now, I know what you're thinking, but this isn't just any worksheet. It's a really smart lesson that manages to merge a super practical skill, public speaking, with some pretty deep spiritual instruction. So on the surface, the task is about as straightforward as it gets. You've probably seen this in any middle school class, right? The student has to prepare and give a simple 1-minute speech. It's a classic assignment, a great way to build up some confidence and practice communication. But here's where it takes a really interesting turn. This is not a speech about your favorite hobby or what you did over summer break. Nope. The title, printed right there on the worksheet, is How Can I Listen to God Like Samuel? And that one question, right there, changes this from a simple speaking exercise into something way, way more complex.
So let's unpack how this worksheet actually pulls this off. It's honestly like a mini masterclass in how to build an integrated lesson.
The instructions couldn't be clearer. This is a mini presentation for a sixth grader. The whole theme is about becoming a better listener. And the specific role model for this is the biblical figure Samuel. You can see right away, every single part of this assignment is going to be built around that central faith-based idea. What's really clever is that before a student even thinks about the speaking part, the worksheet gets them to focus completely on the theme of listening. It's all about building that foundation first. And the very first thing they have to do is fill out a brainstorm box. It's a space designed to get their own thoughts and experiences down on paper before they even start trying to structure the speech itself. And the questions inside this box, wow, they really tell a story. You can see the progression here. It kicks off with something universal, totally relatable. Have I ever missed something important? Then it gets a little more introspective, asking about focus. But then it takes this huge leap right into the abstract and the spiritual. What does it mean to listen with your heart? And this little comparison just perfectly shows the worksheet's dual approach. It's connecting the practical, everyday challenge of listening, with your ears, to this much deeper, more spiritual concept that it calls listening with your heart. Okay, so you've got your brainstormed ideas. How does a sixth grader turn those jumbled thoughts into an actual speech? Well, the worksheet doesn't just leave them hanging, it provides a really clear roadmap. Yeah, this is not a free-for-all, it's a very guided process. You go from brainstorming to using specific sentence starters, to adding in some vocabulary words, and then you put it all together to write 3 to 5 sentences. It's a very structured path from a basic idea to a finished script. And these sentence starters are absolutely key. They're basically guardrails for the student's writing. They make sure the final speech covers why listening is important, how they can apply it to their own life, and, of course, how it all connects back to the example of Samuel. But it's not just about the spiritual side of things. The assignment makes sure to reinforce the technical skills of public speaking. Students actually have to pick 2 or more words from this list, words like interpret, gesture, and volume, and work them into their speech. This makes sure the nuts and bolts of good communication are being practiced. All right, the speech is written. Now it's time for the performance and, just as important, the reflection. This is where the student gets to apply what they've learned and then take a look at their own work. And to make that practice session a little less scary, the worksheet gives some wonderfully low-stakes options for an audience. You can give your speech to a parent, a sibling, or, and this is my personal favorite, a stuffed animal audience. How great is that? It's such a charming detail that totally gets how nerve-wracking this can be for a kid and creates a really safe space to practice. After the performance, it's time for some analysis. This self-assessment checklist is a fantastic tool. It gets the student to think about really concrete, observable skills. Did I speak at a steady pace? Did I use eye contact? It turns a subjective feeling into a much more objective evaluation. And it even goes beyond the technical stuff. It validates the emotional side of public speaking. The worksheet asks the student to circle how they felt. Confident, maybe they need more practice, or, hey, nervous, but I tried. It makes that feeling a real key part of the learning process. So, when you put all these pieces together, what does this worksheet really show us about this particular educational approach? It's time to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. The very last part of the worksheet is this bonus section called a fluency challenge, and this moves the student beyond their own written speech into oral recitation. And the line for this challenge is this really powerful quote from 1 Samuel. "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." So here, the scripture isn't just a reference anymore. It's being used as a direct tool for practicing fluency and expression.
At the end of the day, this one single worksheet masterfully weaves together two completely different goals. On one hand, it's a practical lesson in public speaking with all the trimmings, vocabulary, delivery practice, self-assessment. And on the other, it's a guided spiritual reflection, the two represented as if they are totally inseparable.
And that really leaves us with a bigger question to think about, doesn't it? This whole document is a perfect example of faith-based education in action, where a practical skill is taught entirely through a spiritual lens. It kind of prompts us to consider, how does weaving faith so deeply into skill-based learning really shape a student's overall educational experience?